Look, from the heart and with just genuine respect, might I say, you crazy bastards.
Thank you. That's a great compliment.
I love being called a crazy bastard.
Yeah. It's the best.
Yeah.
This is a knockout of a film. So congratulations on the high quality of the direction in the film, which is a very fine balance between restraint and excess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of excess, that's for sure.
Listen, just before we get into the details, just a bit of housekeeping, because your film has just sprung 3 nominations at the AACTA Awards, which one day we will hopefully refer to as Australia's Oscars. Not quite there yet, but you're up for Best Film, Best Direction, and Best Lead Actress for Asha D, who is the main character in the film. In a nutshell, guys, can you just tell us about the life of the film from completion to getting 3 nominations at the AACTA Awards?
Well, we started at South by Southwest in March, which I remember the day we got told that we were accepted into South by. I think I cried in front of my students, which was really embarrassing. And then after the amazing, audience and reception at South by, which was just like, dream come true, we came home for 3 weeks later and we got married. And then we just basically went on like a 6-month tour around the world, watching our film in different cinemas, in different cultures, and just seeing how themes in the movie translate and land with the horror hounds across the globe.
Yeah, no, it's been the kind of dream rollout that you hope for, I think, as a filmmaker, to be able to, see the world with your movie and to be able to share it with audiences, especially seeing as this was really like the first year back from COVID for a lot of these festivals. So we couldn't have timed it better to have a lot of, enthusiastic audiences there that were, cheering at the right moments and loving all those kind of kill scenes and whatnot in the film. And, some real highlights from like Fantasia Festival in Montreal to Sitges in Spain, to Bucheon in South Korea, where they sit dead silent the whole movie and you think that they hate it, but then they just respond rapturously afterwards because it's just a cultural thing to respect your neighbor's enjoyment of the film. So a lot of really cool things we saw and witnessed, and then to come home now and to get these nominations for what is essentially a horror comedy. I mean, a coming of age film, I guess. I mean, however you want to describe it, we've seen lots of different interpretations. Is just a dream come true. It's a really great sign of, I think, an appreciation of genre cinema in Australia, which is our favorite stuff from growing up. And what's been awesome going around the world is that when people come up to us and talk about Australian film, they always talk about the horror movies. They always talk about the weird little twisted gems that we have in this country, whether it be like Hounds of Love or The Loved Ones, all the way back to Wolf Creek and beyond. Wake and Fright, which is probably our favorite Australian horror. So like, it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Now, just to avoid giving anything crucial away from the film, let's just agree on a general description of the film. It's about a popular social media influencer who is invited by her childhood bestie to her hen's night at a remote cabin in the woods, of course, where events not traditionally associated with hen's nights occur.
Yes.
That's as much detail as we need to go into, I think, because we don't want to give anything away. Can I just ask you as a general point, when you were conceiving this film, did you two guys scrupulously decide what horror movie conventions you were going to embrace? and which ones you are going to studiously avoid. Because in the best Hitchcock tradition, you're halfway through the film before you realize what kind of film it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. I think that definitely was intentional, was kind of, somewhat making a film that leads you down a certain path and then kind of pulls the rug out from under you a little bit. Stories that have big turns in their narrative, I think, are always the ones that we respond to the most. And sure, all the horror genres, I mean, the tropes we talked about a lot, instead of it's been described as, a cabin in the woods, because that's obviously the terminology that we use in the genre. But I mean, we just started with something like that, for example, and said, well, what if it was actually like a really nice place, like a real beautiful kind of millionaire's house in the countryside, as just one of the examples, I guess, of a subversion.
We leaned on classic tropes, absolutely, and wanted to, nod to the canon in our own way by making the gore and the kills gleeful. I think the twist on the perspective, the lens that we're looking through, is perhaps what we may have added or contributed in our own way. But, that was by casting Aisha in that lead and making her so charming and likable, and she just gave so much to the filmmaking process in her performance.
But I have to ask you about the look of the film.
Yeah.
You've chosen some wonderful techniques that actually hark back to, early 70s independent American cinema, where characters are talking straight into the lens. It doesn't look like a traditional horror film. Tell me a little bit about the guiding principles, if you like, of the way the film looked. As you mentioned, it's a very beautiful place with lots of greenery and trees. Doesn't have the ominous look of a traditional horror film, except when you get to the payoff scenes.
Right. Well, we were very inspired by Brian De Palma's movies. We were equally inspired by something like Muriel's Wedding, which, is probably an unlikely reference for a quote-unquote horror film. But we never went into it really thinking of it as just a horror. It was always kind of a coming-of-age kind of character piece. The violence was somewhat of I guess a metaphor. Like, sure, this film could happen exactly the way, like it could theoretically happen in real life, and that was something important to us, to have an element of realism, but also, like what you were saying about just the kind of aesthetic of it all and the glitter and
we intentionally mashed up the Y2K coming of age, like Mean Girls, Crossroads, glitter, Muriel's Wedding, which preceded all of those films, with the 70s, 80s, even 90s camp, giallo infused horrors. That was the two of us bringing different things to the table. And then, we have to obviously mention Steve Arnold, our incredible cinematographer. He has such a wealth of experience and knowledge, and just he's a fan of cinema himself. So,
and a fan of genre stuff, loves doing comic book looking movies, stuff that is colorful and playing with colored lighting. And he was he wanted to shoot it like Suspiria, like a Dario Argento movie. And that was just one of the many references. Robert
Zemeckis as well, the sort of Death Becomes Her, Blue Lightning camp of it all. He, we talked about a lot of that in pre-production. So
it's kind of a mashup. It really is a mashup of different eras. And I think, we went into it going, we're big film fans. I feel like we've always been film buffs and fans before filmmakers. And it was always just wanting to throw all our loves into this as if it was the last movie we were going to ever make, So yes, you've got a lot of the Mean Girls and the Crossroads and the Y2K and the time capsule and the glitter of it all. And then you've got a lot of the kind of giallo references, whether it be the score by Ken Lample, which is awesome, or like we said with Steve Arnold's cinematography, or, just the gore and the practical effects, but then also kind of the camp of some of the 80s and 90s movies. It's really a mixed bag.
Yeah.
And we love that. We don't think you have to fit into any one box.
Just quickly, just in parentheses, the reference I made to early American 1970s cinema. It was the film Jack Nicholson, Carnal Knowledge, where they're
Yes.
talking directly to the camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that movie.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a great reference. We've never heard anyone bring that one up. Yeah.
That wasn't an intentional reference, but I think the framework of Cecilia being an influencer gave us permission to break the fourth wall.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just on that, just to absolutely clarify, because you can read a lot of things into the film about, what's it talking about? Is it a satire on social media influencers, on toxic friendships, on the importance of telling the difference between what's real and what's phony, which in this day and age, to Gen Z, very, very big issue. Those lines are very blurred. But it's also a bloody good horror film. Guys, is it a balance between the two? Or are all those themes and so on just storytelling garnish for what is, in essence, a wonderful, gross-out horror film?
I mean, look, I don't want to tell anyone how to watch the movie, because sometimes I worry if we say one thing, then they go into it with that expectation and they're let down. I think at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's probably not a good answer, but it's just as much a coming of age story. It's just as much a film about toxic friendship as it is about the violence that we inflict upon ourselves, through comparison anxiety, through addiction to our phones, dopamine hit that we've become accustomed to. We think of it as like a drug epidemic in many ways, like anything else, that we're willingly subjecting ourselves to, and everyone's doing it. And so there's a horror in that idea, but it's just as much about friendship and discovering yourself. And, so I don't think we ever went into it saying, let's make a gross out horror film. I think we can say that. Yes and no. Like, yes. Well, why do you think yes?
Well, I think I do think it is both. I think we wanted to make, the comedic social commentary, scathing satire about toxic female friendships, and also the consequences of not working on yourself. But also we were like, let's, like, without giving anything away, squash some heads and make people squirm. Like, have fun with it, not take it all too seriously.
And I think what's important, if you want to read into that and go, oh, this is literal, this is someone's one bad day, like the kind of concept how we're all one bad day away from breaking, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to read into it like, oh, the violence is a metaphor, for not being for the pain of tearing ourselves away from those toxic friendships, and those parts of ourselves that like the way that we all kind of are terrible to ourselves, and I think a lot of that is fostered by our addiction to social media. You can read it that way. I don't think there's any one way, and I don't necessarily know we even have the answer for that. It's kind of like we've made this thing. These ingredients seemed right to us at the time,
and people are responding to it, and that's a miracle.
Yeah, it kind of belongs to the world now.
Well, you guys you've had your cake and you're eating it as well. So congratulations. Tell me about your love of practical effects, because you could have gone digital with a lot of this stuff, but you obviously chose old school special makeup effects. Secondly, as young filmmakers, just wanted to know your general view of Australian cinema and its connection with audiences. So firstly, practical effects, go.
Well, the first movie I remember ever loving was Robert Zemeckis' Death Becomes Her, and they did a lot of that, if not most of that, in camera. So we worked with the best of the best in Australia.
Yeah.
Larry
Van Dijnhoven from Scarecrew Studios. He's the Tom Savini of Australia. I've been saying that all year round. He's awesome. Done everything from, Relic, stuff on the Nightingale, Upgrade, Mortal Kombat, just a lot of stuff that is shot here over the last few years. It's just fun. It's fun doing things practically. Not only is it, because that's how it was always done in the films that we loved growing up, but also it just feels more real. Even if there is a fakeness to it that you can't avoid in some sense, there's a texture, there's a
magic.
There's really. It's tactile, and I think the audience feels that.
And it's art, and as artists, not to sound like a wanker, you want to give other artists an opportunity and craftsmen to do what they do.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into your next question, like, how do we feel about cinema and audiences worldwide, and how cinema's kind of like a sinking ship or whatever. Australian cinema. Yeah. Well, I just think that horror fans are loyal to the theatre. They show up in droves. We've seen that. We have evidence of it now worldwide. We were so privileged to be sitting in the audiences with people who watched our movie in Spain, in Korea, in all parts of Europe, America, and they want to see the magic. They really appreciate seeing, the practical effects that Larry was able to deliver in our movie. So
they want the communal experience, especially after 3 years almost of kind of not having it.
And we're sick of Marvel CGI. Like it's just, it's everywhere.
It's too much. There's a disassociation when you watch it where you kind of just don't feel like any of this is real. It feels like a video game. And I think a lot has been lost in that. But in terms of Australian cinema, I mean, we're very proud to be from Australia. We're very proud to be Australian filmmakers. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think I don't know why. I think because we're in this country so far away from the rest of the world, we have to keep ourselves occupied, and we often have a very kind of tongue-in-cheek, darkly comedic take on a lot of genres such as horror, but also just kind of dramedies like Muriel's Wedding, which is a big reference for us, as we said, is such a dark film.
It's demented.
It's so depressing.
Yeah.
Yet it's marketed as a broad comedy, with her on the cover with the white wedding dress, so we kind of love the Australian twist on everything. If America approaches things earnestly, and England maybe approaches things intellectually, I feel like Australia approaches things
with a sense of humor,
just with a wicked sense of humor.
Yeah.
And and maybe that's a response to our super dark past, that we have to at least laugh about it in some, not about it, but we have to laugh, right? We have to turn darkness into kind of comedy.
We have to learn through humor.
Yeah. And so that's what we're just happy to be in the vein of that long tradition.
Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on the film. And if it's possible at all, through the screen, you mentioned Tom Savini.
Yeah.
Big group hug, kiss on the forehead to both of you. Absolutely. Creep Show, all those other brilliant films he did. So lovely that you mentioned him. Listen, the best of success with the film. I'll just try and squeeze in one quick bonus comment about marketing. Smile is out at the moment and it's doing gangbuster business.
Yep.
Signage all over the place. What's been the marketing side to you? Did you guys have enough budget to market the film properly?
That is not our division. That's AACTA Distribution. And, AACTA Distribution, they're doing a great job. They are competing with like studio level budgets to market movies. Yeah. And so I think we've segued into the house of Shudder, and that has been a wonderful positioning because horror fans worldwide appreciate Shudder. They're on Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes commenting on the film because of Shudder, and we've watched our film have this sort of like organic fire trail growth. And now that we're releasing in theaters today, Australia wide, I think AACTA is in a really good position to keep the film in the cinemas, hopefully for a period of time, at least through to the AACTAs.
I mean, anybody listening to this, we're going to be in the cinemas as long as we sell tickets, and that's never a given. As we all know, for Australian films, it's I think the other year I looked up some stat that only about 2 or 3% of the overall box office was for Australian films. That's nothing. That's really nothing, and so you always go in with kind of like high hopes, low expectations. I do know horror still does play in theaters. It's one of the rare genres where you can kind of have a low budget films still get people to leave their homes and go see it. It's really hard in this day and age. But I think our film, plays well in a group setting. I think it's more enjoyable that way. And so, I would encourage anybody listening to this to go out and watch it with people in the cinema.
It's great.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. In closing, it never has been and it never will be a level playing field out there in the movie market. So again, best of success to you guys, both now with its theatrical and when it hits the stream. But absolutely bowled over by this movie. Congratulations again. Thank you for your time. I look forward to the next opportunity I have to speak to both of you. Great work.
Same.
You too, Jim.
Thanks, guys.
This has been a lot of fun, Jim. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.